It's Phil on Crystal, and I am doing school board interviews. And today I'm with Johanna Kugler. Johanna, thanks for making time.
Thanks for having me.
And it's good to have you in here talking a little bit about, holding on to your seat because you are currently on the board. How long have you served on the board?
I was appointed July of 2021, so not very long, but long enough to jump in and get started.
And you came in during a time of, turmoil, I guess I would say. Some people had left, some people were coming in, superintendents were swapping around. What made you want to put your hat in the ring?
That's a great question. I have been really committed to this community, to our schools, to my family and other children and families. And I just felt like this was the right time. I have a lot of expertise on big picture and systems thinking. And I thought that at this point in time, they're looking at a strategic plan. They're looking at a superintendent. They're looking at new ways of doing things for assessments, screenings, curriculum. And I might be able to bring something to the board that maybe wasn't there in the past or could be added to with the other skill sets of other board members. I'm not scared of turmoil and things that are a little up in the air. I think that actually that can allow for some stress on the system and movement and change. So I think it's good to have new thoughts and new skill sets. And so I thought this was the right time to do it.
All right. Great. And what's your background? Like you said, you got experience with some of that big picture planning stuff.
Sure. So my degree is in sociology and history of religions, and then I have a master's in administrative leadership and policy studies with an emphasis in early childhood. My background here in the county is I've worked for early childhood options, and with that was a lot of early childhood council work for Grand Summit and Lake County. Also, I then decided I needed to work and get my feet wet and dirty and my hands dirty as well. And so I jumped in with being a director of a child care center. And then I am currently working at Open Arms Childcare, wearing lots of different hats, but really looking at the behind the scenes, so files, teachers and children files, licensing rules and environmental health and public health regulations, writing grants, looking at budgets, working with their board of directors and their director to really make their school come to what they want it to be. As far as other experiences here, I volunteer in the community. I'm on the PTSA. I am sort of anywhere that I can help children, families in this community.
All right. Yeah, and obviously, day to day, your day job is working right in the thick of, the beginning of the education system.
Absolutely.
Now, remind me, where is Open Arms?
It's across from the high school. It's at Farmers Corner.
As you've been working there, what have you seen with, the education system? Obviously, there's a huge need for teachers, huge need for support, huge need for all that sort of stuff because the county's growing. Mm-hmm. There's lots more kids than there used to be up here. What have you seen, working like frontline?
Frontline, I would say that really it's a team effort, and it's something that I strongly, strongly believe in. And what I mean by a team effort, and it's something that we've seen for years and been successful with early childhood, which is all the way up to age 8. And that is a group of people who come and advocate for children. So on that team is always a parent because they're the expert on their child. There are the teachers or the other professionals that are working, and they're the experts in the field and in their classrooms. There are specialists, so OT, PT, any specialist that child needs. You will also bring in other community members who might be involved in that child's life, such as from their church or the rec center or whatever that might be. And that whole team is looking at the success of that child and how they can grow, if it means intervention or prevention, but they are helping that whole child. And so I've seen that be successful in early childhood, and I think that can truly translate over into your older education experiences. So it's not just an individual education plan, but an individual family service plan is the whole service.
Is the district moving in that direction, or is that the sort of thing that takes a long time to get set up?
That's a great question. So it does take a long time to set up, but I would say the district is looking more at that. So an example of that is the new plans that are going in place for the improvement plans. They didn't just look at bringing in the leadership team from the school district, but really going out and saying, okay, parents, what do you think? You're accountable for this information too, which is looking at test scores and looking at just really what needs to be involved. So parents are being involved, teachers are being involved, support staff's being involved. It is the whole community and looking at that aspect of the individual child. And it's coming together to think that every child has needs, and those need resources and tools, and everyone's a part of that team. But you're right, it does take a long time. It's not going to be something we're going to check off next week.
What else have you seen that the district is very interested in making happen right now? Like, I know I've heard about some master planning and strategic planning and equity policies, lots of things getting juggled right now. What do you see as the district's priorities, or what should be the district priorities?
That's great. I would say they align in some spaces of what my priorities and the district's priorities are. And then I think that there's lots of room for growth. So one of my biggest things would be is for that communication to happen. Going back and forth with parents, I know that that is one pillar of the strategic plan. I think there's a lot of work to be done with that communication. Communication from the leadership team to teachers to support staff, but also to parents in this community. And then going back the other way, getting that feedback and communication from them. Some of that basic communication starts with just defining what we mean by equity, defining what we mean by really all of the terms that are in there. We shouldn't make assumptions that everyone is on the same page. And so that's how we're going to start that communication. Some of these other priorities that I do think is, I haven't heard a single person say, I just only want to focus on my child. Everyone is saying, let's focus on every child, and every child deserves to be successful, a graduate plan, and everyone wants to get those test scores up, knowing that test scores are not the only thing that contribute to growth and success for a child.
That's one thing that I've heard from folks is that the test scores, they've just been falling and falling. It's a downward trend, and that it's headed in the wrong direction. What can be done to help bring those test scores up? And what are some other, gauges of, what's happening in the school other than test scores?
Yeah, I think that's great. So test scores are not the only thing that we look at for children. And I would love to actually expand how we do assessments on children. Again, I will bring this back to something that I've seen very successful. When you look at a whole child, you're not just looking at their test scores. You're looking at their cognitive. You're looking at social-emotional. You're looking at their physical well-being. And so those are all parts of this. And I do think that that's very valuable to be able to include multiple people as well in doing that assessment. We cannot just completely get rid of tests either, and it would not be appropriate for us to create our own sort of testing. We need to work with in the system that's already in place, but we can improve and go above and beyond that.
Okay. It's almost like what you were talking about with that team approach, that you need that team in place to help the child succeed on all levels.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I do think that we forget a lot of times that the child is also the expert on themselves, and they need to be a part of this as well. We also don't want to be just doing those tests or doing assessments and screenings towards the end of the year. It should really be done at the very beginning of the year of asking children where they already feel they are. Then we're going to go ahead and look at them from where they are now to where they grow over time. Really, we should be focusing on overall child growth. And their individual growth. Okay.
We were talking a little bit earlier about, some of the changes that have happened, especially with admin and leadership and some of those roles. 3 superintendents in 3 years. It's tough for anybody to deal with that sort of thing. Superintendent Crawford right now, do you think he's a good fit for the district right now? And then what comes next? Because I know he's only an interim.
Yeah. As far as the time that I've worked with him, and then also seeing as a parent in the school district, the communications that's come from him, I have been excited to work alongside him. I think that he has brought in a lot of knowledge from outside and lots of years of experience, also experience with IB schools, experience with going through a whole systems change. And so I think that's a great place to start. He's not the 100% answer, just like the perfect teacher is not the 100% answer. It, again, is going to come to that whole team. And I really feel like right now he's helping set up systems. creating a wheel and setting up systems is a lot of work, and it is very, very challenging. And I'm so fortunate that my kiddos are in a school where there's just phenomenal leadership teams and teachers, and I've seen that in all the other schools that I've gotten to visit. And we have to rely on them as experts as well. We have to rely on the parent voice and the parents coming in and participating as well and building these systems. So I don't know what the work will take, where it will fully take us in the next year to 2 years to 5 years. I do know that it is changing. There's more involvement. We're really focusing on graduates. And I really am excited to see more voices at the table, whether they're the voices that agree with me or not. All voices count, and I'm glad that they're all showing up.
Okay, great. School boards in general have somehow become like, a whole little microcosm of politics. And it's weird that school boards have become like, you almost turn into politicians. When it comes to your approach to being on a school board, how do you want to approach a school board? What are your top priorities when it comes to being there?
Yeah, I would say that I'm sad that it's becoming more political, because I would say that that's not my goal, is to be political at all. I'm doing this for children, families, the educators, and this community. And that's my sole priority here for all of those folks. So I would say how I look at that is the whole child, and we've kind of talked about that already, but really looking at every aspect of that child. And so do they need more resources? Do they need additional substance to their work because they're gifted? Do they need some sort of intervention, prevention, but not making assumptions? I don't want to just look at a child or speak to a child once and know, oh, this is what they are because they fit in a box. Every child has to be a part of making that decision, and everyone needs a little bit different resources. The second would be a whole team, and we've talked about that as well, as really, that's my focus, is bringing in as many people that we can, knowing that not every single person's ever going to be represented at the table, but as many as possible, and everybody has a voice in that. And then the third is that whole community. The school board needs to be a part of this county, and they need to be at the table. So I'm on the subcommittee for housing, and that's only one aspect. We really need to be looking at how are we involved in this community. And then flipping it around is how is this community supporting, taking pride in our school district, and also holding the school district accountable. So it comes together with, really, we need to have checks and balances all the way across the board.
Okay. Yeah, and I know lots of folks have, sometimes it's hard to get involved with the school board or what's going on with the school district if you don't have children in there. But if nothing else, if you own property here, you're a taxpayer. Taxes help fund what's going on at the school district. And that's my last big question. Fiscal responsibility. That's another thing that I've heard, is that, people are unhappy with the way the district is spending money. What does fiscal responsibility mean to you at the district, and where would you like to see money spent? What's the best use of money for the district?
Yeah. Fiscal responsibility is really being held accountable and doing assessments, check-ins, and seeing if it is really working with where you have put your money. You have to be held accountable to all of your all the constituents that are involved in this and all the people that are involved. So that's children, that's your families, that's the community, that's the educators, that is really anyone who's in Summit County is part of this. And I think fiscal responsibility is also admitting when something's not right, looking at how we can change it, but using the expertise from outside, not just the few hands inside that are doing the work. I would also say that as far as our community members, they can all get involved. And I would hope to see that everyone's getting involved. If you have kiddos in school, talk to your teacher specifically. Get involved that way. Go to parent-teacher conferences. Join a committee if you can. If you can't join a committee, then go ahead and review the budgets. Look at how you can participate in any way, shape, or form. If you have some expertise, donate that time to go ahead and participate. As far as fiscal responsibility, I know that a lot of people are wanting more money to go to one specific group or another. We have to look at the overall budget and know that 90% of that budget is already covering benefits and salaries, and that's a huge amount. We need to maybe look to see what other things we can do besides just money. Money is very, very important. The cost of living up here is incredibly high. Housing is a problem. So I'm not saying that we discredit giving money. Absolutely giving money where we can. But as far as fiscal responsibility, if we just keep raising and raising and raising those rates to give to salaries, how do we sustain that? Do we have to keep going back to taxpayers and asking for money to continually increase those? Are we kicking out all the other jobs that are in this community. So we have to look at what is the balance. So are we also looking at the morale of the school? Are we looking at support? Is there professional development for teachers and growth opportunities? We have to look at making sure that they feel like there's a work-life balance and that they feel supported and they have the skills and the resources that they need at their fingertips alongside the money. And so that's part of that fiscal responsibility is I know everyone would love to give more money everywhere, but we don't have that money.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point that I'm going to try and make myself too while I'm doing this coverage, is that, I talked to one other candidate who, she said that in an old district that she worked at, they had a problem with turnover even though they kept raising the salaries every single year. And so they realized that it wasn't cash that was keeping teachers there. It was other services. And so they started a child care center in-house just for teachers. And she said, boom, worked like a charm. Suddenly teachers were willing to stay because they didn't have to stress about how they were going to take care of their own children while they were still trying to teach. Yeah. And so she saw right away that, sometimes, raising the pay rate, it looks good on paper and it sounds good to people who might not be in the thick of it, but for the teachers themselves, it's not always the thing that gets them to stay around.
Absolutely. And that comes back to that being part of that community, knowing where we can sit and where we can help those teachers and retention and recruitment, knowing where there are other things, like is it a ski pass? Is it something else that can help them feel like they're a part of this community too and they're not just struggling day to day? And if we look at the whole rest of this community, you can drive by any sign here and it says they're hiring at every location. And some of these places that are entry-level jobs are starting at $18, $19 an hour, and they still are hiring. So we know that money is not the only answer.
Yeah. Great. Joanna, that was the last thing that I had for you. Any final thoughts or words or other stuff?
Just that I'm running a grassroots effort because really I believe in the whole child, the whole team, and the whole community. And I hope that I'm the right fit for this position and I can continue on the work that I'm doing. But I know that I will be involved in this school district regardless of how the results are. And I'm very, very passionate about the work that I'm doing.
And I guess I came up with one more question. In the past, 4 months, what's the learning curve been like?
It's about as steep a climb as you can get. And I will say that because I'm on the It's About Kids network for the last 10 years, I have learned about school finance, K-12, education, health, and early childhood. I've been volunteering in lots of different positions, and I really know a lot about policy and legislation at the state level, how to turn it into how it works at the ground level. And I will still tell you, it has been a huge learning curve. There's a lot of work and a lot of commitment. When they said that you only have 2 meetings a month that are about 4.5 hours, that is the tip of the iceberg. And I think obviously you get out what you put in, but there is subcommittee work, there is meeting with people, that is really listening and taking time and absorbing it, lots of reading, and then asking questions and follow up. Plus you have funny things like sunshine law, so we can't, all the board members can't meet and talk at once. We have to communicate with only 2 at a time, and really making sure then that everyone still is on the same page and all information is being articulated the correct way.
And it's all volunteer.
It's all volunteer. It's one of the only elected, non-paid positions out there.
Well, we appreciate all the work that you guys are doing, and of course the fact that you're still willing to run for it, because I know that lots of folks out there say, no, not for me. Not at all. Yeah. I don't even want to get involved.
Yeah, no, I would say that I have 3 kids at Dillon Valley, and I want to be a good model for them. I want them to see that you can advocate for something you believe in, that you can do it all in a positive way, and that you can be committed and engaged in many, many aspects of your community to make things better.
Well, Johanna, thanks again for making time to come in. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And of course, best of luck in the race. Phil Lindemann here on Crystal 93.